Well, hello everybody. We are live. Hi Viv, how are you?
We are definitely live. I'm great. I'm probably sweltering to death, and you look like you're rugged up, keeping warm.
Yes, exactly. That makes the location difference, I guess.
Yes, if I have
One
a
in
very
the winter.
if I have a very flushed look, there's a good reason for it. It's flipping hot.
That is funny. Yeah. Well, I was just on the southern hemisphere and it was pretty warm there too. So
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in the only room in the house that's air conditioned, and the dog's right next to me, lying out under the prime position.
yeah, everybody knows where to go.
She's actually been really smart because she's working out. She's going through every single room going, this one's a little bit too hot. This one's a little bit too cold. This one's just right. And being the responsible parent that I am, I let her choose.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing.
So today we're talking about responsibility, that R word.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, I think most people get stuck with what am I responsible for? What is it that I have to do for my pet? And all that stuff. I'm apparently coughing.
Yeah, and the conclusions that we come to, the presumed realities that we come to about, okay, well, if I have an animal, it means X, Y, and Z. And often people back themselves into a corner thinking, oh my God, I can't take more responsibility on. I'm already overloaded. And they have this point of view about an animal being more responsibility, which it is to a degree, but it's looking at how it can work for you. How can this animal fit into your lifestyle, with how it works for you?
Yeah, and partially too, like really getting away from this interesting idea of responsibility anyway, in the weird sense of it. When you ask Gary Douglas what is responsibility, he says it's literally the ability to respond to any situation. Oh, well, what if it was just that? If you had something going on with your animal and you just knew what was the thing that you could do to either change it or move forward or have ease with it. But we have attached all these meanings to it. And I think that's the part that really gets crabby, because responsible means, I have to feed my pet so many times a day. I have to make sure I don't torture them. I have to make sure they have a roof over their head. But then other people may have completely different ideas of what responsibility means. I just make sure my dog has fresh water every day, and maybe not even that. I mean, some people, when you look at situations where animals are being rescued from, something, and you see the conditions they're living in, but those people thought they were responsible, which is very funny too. And to us it would be like, oh my God, that's not being responsible. That's horrible.
Yeah.
So like you said, so all the responsive realities that you have, presumptive realities, I'm sorry, all the presumptive realities that you have about what responsibility means, will you just turn on creative, please, times a gazillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys, pulvats, and beyonds. And so the presumptive realities are where we are deciding ahead of time what is right and what is wrong, and basically also deciding the outcome of everything. So we have this presumptive reality that, oh, the outcome will be this. If I do this with my pet, this will be the outcome. But where's the question? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. There is no question. So if we go back to responsibility is response, the ability to respond, it's in a way that works for you. Because if we're functioning from, okay, well, this is the structure, these are the rules and regulations. If you have a dog or a cat or whatever animal, this is your responsibility for the rest of your life. And yet if you're creating a relationship with your animal, it's how does it work for you? If you're able to respond to a situation in a way that there is a question, there are choices, there is possibility, then you're not closing yourself into this no choice universe, which I think a lot of people go into. Oh, well, I can't go away for the weekend. Oh, I've got to be home by 5 o'clock because the cats are on their own, and so they totally stop their ability to question and make different choices based on this presumption of, well, this is what it means. So what if you'd be willing to be able to respond with a question, the ability to respond to any situation with, well, what else is possible? If it's not something that isn't appealing to you, or you can feel yourself going into resistance to that, it's like, well, what else is possible? That question always will open the door to other possibilities. So, and Susie, I love when I first met you, it was many moons ago now, but when I first met you, you had Charlie. Charlie was probably a pup at that stage. I'm going back, I don't know, 15 years or so. And, you traveled a lot. You were the main go-to for setting up all the technical side of things, all the audio recordings, everything that was required for Gary and Dane as they traveled around the world. You were their number one tech wizard. And so that required you to be traveling a lot. And yet you had the responsibility of a dog and probably other animals that came and went as well. So do you want to talk a bit about that, how that worked for you?
Yeah, actually, thanks for bringing that up, because at the time when I started traveling for Access, I actually had a dog walking business, but I didn't have any dogs of my own. And then, but I was volunteering at the shelter, so I did actually get a dog eventually, because they saw that I was the only person that could actually walk this dog, and she was getting more and more crazy in the shelter. And they finally said, hey, look, if you don't foster this dog, we're going to have to put her down because she's becoming dangerous, and she was such an athlete, and she was just getting so wound up in the shelter that she started to just lash out. So I took her home, and so I think I had her for about a year, and I think that's when Charlie came into my life. But that's also when she became really clear, or maybe it was just 6 months. I don't remember, but it became really clear that Savannah, this other dog, was not happy about my travel schedule. And she really made that clear to me. And when I got that loud and clear, literally that same day, I put an ad in the local, online paper, and I had a call within 3 hours. And then the dog was actually at her new home that same evening.
Wow.
And so that's how fast that went. And the guy, I don't know if she's still alive, but I talked to him a few years ago, and he was just so happy still with her. And it's just like, that was the life she was looking for. He was a surfer. He went to the beach every day. And while he was surfing, she would just run the beach up and down, up and down, up and down, and she loved it. But with Charlie, it was different. And he was actually willing. For him, it was sort of, hey, I enjoy being with you. And as long as you find me good people that are watching me, I'm fine with that. And he would let me know if he didn't like those people. Oh, would he find ways to show me that, And we had a little bit of that too, where he was like, I do not wish to ever go back here. And, and he was always making clear that I got the message, like, yeah, I hope you get it. I'm not coming back here. And I'm like, yep, I got it. I got it.
So both of those are really cool examples of the ability to respond to a situation from possibility, not from this conclusion or the presumption of, okay, this means this, the commitment, because that's the other thing people kind of assume as well, that it's a commitment, which it is, but it doesn't have to be this heavy, chain around your neck, I can't have a life type commitment. It can be in a situation where you can honor the animal and include their choice too. So with Vanna, you totally included her choice. She made it obvious. You were willing to listen, and you also were able to respond to, okay, well, what's going to work? What's next? And click, that a willingness to ask the question and not be in judgment of yourself of, oh, I'm a terrible person, I've committed to this dog, I've got to keep her the rest of my life. No, if the animal is making it clear, what if a better home could show up? So,
and the funny thing to me with that, Viv, is too, like, so many times people think that, oh, my animal and I, we're connected for the rest of our lives. But with people we don't Yes, I mean, when we get married, we make a commitment, and yet even here, it's okay. It might be hard, but people will allow themselves to break that commitment. But with animals, it's even worse.
Yeah.
People really get into this thing of like, this is my connection for life. But Savannah, the dog that I took out of the shelter, she would have been euthanized. So I actually was able to give her a life. And yes, it was via me, but this other person would have never found her in the shelter, maybe, or well, at least didn't find her then. It was, or wasn't ready at the time. Maybe it took him like 6 months or a year to find this dog. So hey, I was the conduit for something else. Like, and why can't we sometimes see it that way too? What if
Yeah.
an animal could be basically coming through our life? But if I had this point of view, it was my responsibility now to hold on to this animal, she would have been miserable.
I had a thoroughbred horse that made it very, very clear. You met her actually, Sully, the one that used to fall asleep standing up. Yeah, she was $1. She cost me $1. This guy was insistent that I take her, and she made it very obvious that she wanted me. And I'm like, this is crazy. I haven't had horses since I was a teenager, and I'm taking on an ex-race horse. I'm like, this is just didn't make any sense. But using the tools, it was like, okay, well, this horse came to me. I had no attachment to how it showed up. And after a while, there were a lot of issues that I realized I didn't have the skills at that time to deal with. And yet we moved her to a friend of mine who was much more competent with horse skills, and she was starting to school her. And in the meantime, her boss was coming to visit her and found this horse and just went, my horse. And she went, my man. And this was it, instantly said, I want to buy this horse. And my friend Vicky said, oh, it's going to be an expensive horse. And I said, well, I've got to double my money. So I charged him $2. I made 100% profit. And I think she ended up moving to New Zealand and living on this beautiful big farm. And he was absolutely besotted with this horse. And so, it's the same thing when we don't assume that it's our responsibility till death do us part. The animal has choice too. We're very much in snake time of year now. We've seen a lot of snakes where we live, and I've had a really good talk to my dog who's basically lived most of her life in a cage before I adopted her. And so I'm like, okay, I'm giving her the energy and I'm warning her. And I said, look, if this happens, this is going to be what the choices that I'm going to make. I'm not going to be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of trying to, give you antivenin and whatever else. If this is what you choose, I'm going to be willing to be in that moment and look at the situation and go, right, do you want to live, or is it your time to go? Because I've been very clear with snakes that they will kill her. So, and it's very much a journey of no attachment. And you still love your animals. It's not that I'm some cold, heartless, I don't care about my animal, but it's also for me to know what's true for me, to go, okay, this is the deal. This is our deal. I adopted her when she was 6 or 7 years old. She had injuries. I knew she may not live to be 14 and happy and whatever else. She might have only a short time span with me, but I'm also very aware of her choice as well in the whole thing. And that's when we have these presumptive realities. There is no choice. There's no question. There's no other possibility. And therefore, the animal can't contribute to us and communicate in the way that you were just talking about, Savannah, and with Charlie.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that too, with, the willingness to, what you would do, like if there was a snake bite, and the willingness to make that really clear to your animal. I remember when I was walking dogs all the time, this one guy that we were walking the dog for said, hey, look, if anything ever happens on the walk and I'm not reachable and my dog has to go to the vet, I will not spend more than $500 on my dog. So the vet bill is going to be more than $500. This dog has to be put down. And I thought to myself at the time, oh my God, that's cruel, but that worked for him. But the funny thing is, he was my client for many, many, many years. And there was never a dog that had more than $500 at the vet with him.
Yes, they do have the power to make choices. This might be brand new information to you guys, and it might be something you're very familiar with, but they do make their own choices. They are their own being. Yes, we might own them, quote unquote. They actually own us, but we're their primary carer. We're there to feed them and house them and whatever else. But that doesn't mean that they're not an infinite being. They're not a sentient being in a body that has infinite choice as well. And to honor that, and the tools of talk to the animals, it's a very different relationship with animals where you consider them, you communicate with them as much as you would a family member or a work colleague. This is what I love about tools of talk to the animals, because it very much opens that dialogue where there is an open conversation. For people that are new to this, if they're watching this for the first time, Susie talking to Savannah, or Susie talking to Charlie, or me talking to Bella, it's become such a natural way for us that the conversation is really smooth and easy a lot of the time. Not all the time. I know there's times that I'm still emotionally attached and I'll ring Susie and go, can you help me with this? But it opens the doors to having such a, to me, it's a greater relationship rather than this kind of square within the rules and regulations of this is what animal ownership looks like, where there isn't this consideration and inclusion of the animal having its own choice. So yeah, I'm eternally grateful for the tools that talk to the animals.
Yeah. And like you say, Viv, it's a lot of times people think, oh, if I know how to talk to animals, or if I understand them better, then they will do what I want. And it's to me always such an interesting, concept where I go, well, then do you children do what you want? Like, I mean, it's so funny because, communication with an animal doesn't mean that at all, but it can give you more insights to some of the things. And it's not about, constantly also being worried. I think a lot of people are so worried all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Am I getting this right? Like, am I doing what my animal wants? But what if it was really more a collaboration of you and your animal, just really kind of going, okay, cool. So what's actually working? And for Charlie, I never stopped asking him in a way, hey, are you okay with me traveling? And he's not okay with me traveling, but he still wants to be with me. So let's be clear about that too. It's not that he's okay with me traveling, but he tolerates it because he knows I'm doing it. And he knows that is my life. He's not happy about it, but he also knows that he has choice to go somewhere else, and that has never been something he really desired. So I do my best to get him the people that he really enjoys, but at the same time, I'm not going to change my life and stay home, because then I would be miserable. So
yeah,
and he's not miserable, my goodness, by all means. I mean, I see the pictures from the house sitter. He is not miserable, let's just say that.
Yeah, and I think also, Susie, that deal, because you're really being the leader in that relationship, then it's like, this is my life, inviting you into my life. This is the deal. This is how it's going to be. Does that work for you, or does it not work for you? And I mean, this is a massive topic that we could maybe talk about next time in regards to your life continuing. You're not stopping. You're not staying home for the night because the kittens are home alone. That your life still continues, because I do see a lot of people that, whether it's children, it's their first child or their second child or whatever, or somebody else, they often will stop things in their life because of that person. And is that really honoring of you, and is it honoring of them? So it's no different with your animals. And the great thing was you kind of knew from day one, okay, this is my life. And does it work for you? Can we negotiate? Is there a way that we can communicate about this that you are including in? So many conversations to have.
Yeah, totally. And Samantha is asking, were there specific questions I asked Charlie? I don't really recall that in a way. I just know that, and with animal communication too, it's not necessarily something where you sit down and you have a conversation, meaning that, okay, now there is this thing that goes back and forth. It is an energetic communication. And yes, you can sit down, and yes, you can have a conversation that way. But a lot of times information is just floating in, and you kind of get a sense of something, and with Charlie, sometimes there would just be an energy up, and I would be like, what's going on? And I would be, oh, because he was realizing I was getting ready for my next trip, because your energy changes.
Yeah.
When you're getting ready for a trip, you don't even have to pull the suitcase out. No, your energy changes. Because some people say, oh, I hide my suitcase. Okay, cool. But the animal still perceives a change in your being, because you start preparing, you start gathering things, you start, you're getting excited, or whatever it is that whatever trip you're going on, you might be anxious. Like, it's a change in your energy. So period. It doesn't matter where your suitcase is, your animal really recognizes that. And those were usually the times when I would kind of tune in with him, because I could perceive him going, oh, like a shift in his energy. Oh, the traveling. Okay, cool. Hey, Charlie. Hey, you also have choice here. What would you like to choose? This is what I am doing. I'm really sorry, but I also am putting food on your table. And this is part of what I do to do that. So, dude, are you still okay with that? And then I would get this like, like, yeah, okay, but, but then I would just tell him again, hey, you do have choice. Would you like to live somewhere else? No, and that was always loud and clear. No. And so then I took that, like, okay, cool. No, it's a no. You don't desire to live anywhere else. Okay, cool. So then let's work this out the best way we can. And I do, it's not that I'm just traveling 100% of the time. I take times to be with him and my other animals. Like, that is part of my life too, because I enjoy that too. But like Viv is saying, you have to sort of find a way that includes you too. And yes, when you do have children, you do have a partner, you do have have animals in your life is different than if you were completely single. But also, it's something you chose. So there is an enjoyment in that too. So, but please know, you don't have to give yourself up in order to serve all of them. But what if you really were, in a way, included in these choices? And if you want to read a book about this, Gary Douglas wrote a book called Divorceless Relationship. Please check it out, because that, in a way, really describes not giving you up for the relationship, but also recognizing what the relationship requires to keep going, but it's really not about black or white here. So, but the more you fight it, the worse it's going to be.
Yeah, and again, there's no choice. And when we have no choice, most of us kick and buck and fight and kick and spit, because we're not happy when we don't have choice. We can kind of tolerate it and suck it up to a degree, but after a while we start to get really, really cranky that we think we don't have choice. And this is probably one of the biggest presumptive realities anywhere, that I believe I don't have a choice. We always have choice. We always have choice. So, an animal, it's like, well, that's how they function. It was funny hearing you talk earlier, Susie, because I went, wow, there's so many gifts for me with Talk to the Animals, but it's like you begin to function like an animal. And I don't mean you bark and sniff and cock your leg and pee, but you energetically relate to everything in your world. You perceive energy differently. The information, like, the cat's whiskers gives the cat's information. The scent gives an animal information. And so we start to communicate and function and be in the world in a very different way, where we start to receive things very differently, not just through our linear cognitive thinking process, but through every molecule of our body. And it's such a different way to live. And I think, when I look at the ability to respond, an animal normally in normal situations, like for instance, an animal wouldn't get overwhelmed. They wouldn't get overloaded. They might, if they're in a very human created stressful situation, then yes, but out in the wild, they don't have that. They're able to respond to a situation because they're aware of the energy. Their awareness is their insurance. You think about a zebra and a lion. You can sense how if a zebra is very aware and present, then it may perceive the lion. It might smell it. It might hear something. It might be given a clue that the lion's close by. But so you get to function in a very different way with your animals. And so if this is something new for you guys, hearing Susie and I talk about this, there is a different way. There is a very different way that adds to how you're already living. It's not that how you're living and interacting with your animals is wrong, but there's more. There's more available. There's a whole different universe that these animals are inviting us to every day just by their being. There's no pressure, there's no force, there's no nagging, there's no harassing, but their intensity of presence, the relaxation, but their intensity of presence invites us to be and function and reach and see things and perceive things in a very different way. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. The ability to respond from awareness rather than reactivity and reaction and a foregone conclusion, the presumptive realities. So yeah. Awesome conversation again, Susie.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about the cough.
It's all good. It looks to me like you have a fire going in the background. Is it a fire or a salt lamp?
No, it's actually it's a plastic rabbit.
Of course. What else would it be? A glowing plastic rabbit, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for another conversation. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. And if you'd like to know more about Talk to the Animals, you can go to talktotheanimals.com.
That is correct. And there's always classes going on around the world, so please check it out. And by the way, this weird sentence we used earlier is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement that helps you with getting rid of anything that is blocking you energetically. This sentence of right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys, povats, and beyonds. And if you want to know more about that, please go to theclearingstatement.com.
And it's been enjoyable again, and we'll be back very soon with another topic. So Susie and I, we need to get our heads together and come up with some new topics to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.